Battleline podcast. I'm Ian Scotto, here with...
If this one I'm supposed to say my name, right?
Yeah.
I know. No, I'm Chris Perano. I'm Tano. How are you guys doing out there, you crazy kids?
I'm back in studio with Dave Parke. You guys are going to dig this episode. Really excited for it. And every show, as we say, we do have these great interviews with people, whether in the special operations community, talking about, in Dave's case, talking about overcoming adversity and living a pretty exciting life, I have to say, in the case of Dave Parke. But before we do... if you haven't tried Ned by now, you got to get on board. CBD is becoming more and more popular as the years go by, and that is where Ned comes in. They produce the highest quality, full-spectrum CBD extracted from organically grown hemp plants, all sourced from an independent farm in Paonia, Colorado. Ned is a wellness brand offering science-backed and nature-based solutions that offer an alternative to prescription and over-the-counter drugs, zero isolates or synthetic ingredients, and the benefits of CBD are endless. I know for you, it's helped you out your own with your, post-traumatic stress issues and just stress in general and sleeping.
And it's helped also, and it's supposed to have this effect to some people. But I've also colitis. It's really improved my colitis, which is similar to Crohn's disease, which has allowed me to. I can eat more foods and I'm not have to worry about it. And I've seen a marked improvement just with my digestion system. So. CBD oil, I highly recommend it to any veteran out there that's suffering from really, honestly, any ailment. I know it sounds like witch doctor oil, but it's not. It actually works. And then the immunity blend I use all the time as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and for those who are skeptical, they do third-party lab-tested, trials of these things, and that's why it's effective. And beyond just the CBD, they also have the mellow magnesium blend. They also have the sleep blend, the body butter.
The body butter, yep.
The body butter is awesome. It's all things that you guys need to check out, especially if you're suffering from any sleep issues, any post-traumatic stress issues, and you're looking for a natural remedy for that stuff. So if you want to check out Ned and any of their great products, we have a special offer for the Battleline audience. Go to helloned.com/Battleline or enter Battleline at checkout. We'll have the link in description for 15% off your first one-time order or 20% off your first subscription order plus free shipping. That's HELLONED.com/Battleline to get 15% off your first one-time order or 20% off your first subscription order plus free shipping. Thank you, Ned. Go there now. Battleline promo code or helloned.com/Battleline. Link is right there in description. Let's get right into this episode with Army Ranger and Navy hard hat diver, Marine, one of the hosts of the Team House podcast, Dave Parke.
From Omaha, Nebraska to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Twitch is on. Motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battleline podcast.
The switch is on, Battleline podcast, and if my mic sounds any different, I am back in studio because Dave Parke lives in New York. It's exciting to have you on, man. Chris is, of course, in Omaha, but
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
So I'm going to give the audience your background, but I have to tell the audience the last time I saw you because I just think it's funny. So Dave is one of the hosts of the Team House live stream and podcast with Jack Murphy, who you guys know from the show. The only guy I know who served in 3 branches personally, 75th Ranger Regiment sniper, Navy hard hat diver, and Marine, combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, author, actor. But the last time that I saw Dave, and I think this plays into Chris, how you always say like military guys and special ops guys are not like a monolith. They're not all into the same shit. You and Jack are into the nerdiest shit I could ever think of, because the last time I saw you, you were playing Dungeons and Dragons with Jack in a basement. And for the audience, I'm not talking about like video games. I'm talking about
dice?
With the dice.
Tabletop.
And you guys being like, I summon you to blah. And I was like, this is too nerdy for me. And I think I found an excuse to get out of there. But you've been more active doing the team house now, and just I'm excited to have you on, bro.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. Great. I mean, we met actually at Jack's birthday like years ago, right?
Yes, and Jim West was there.
Yeah, Jim West. Yep.
And Gary Dolan.
Yep.
A lot of Rangers and special ops guys.
Yeah.
So this is exciting, and that was probably 2 years ago since I last saw you, and you guys are just killing it now with the team house.
It's funny because the podcast actually started. The studio that you see was actually set up for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It was set up to live stream Dungeons and Dragons. That was going to be the thing. And, we did a couple episodes, and some of the other players were, they're kind of non-committal at times, or things come up. And it never really got wheels. So at one point, Jack was like, hey, do you just want to go down there and start talking? And, we did. And, our first, I don't know how many episodes were just him and I like picking out 3 or 4 things from the news and bullshit, drinking, and bullshitting, and can I?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
And then he brought on a guest, a friend of his, and then more, and then more, and then I brought on some of my friends, and then that became our thing.
Hey, what character? I'm going totally off topic now.
Yeah.
What character are you in Dungeons and Dragons? What are you the most?
I mean, I love warlocks. I love rogues. I love sort of these blade locks. Yeah, yeah.
Dude, because I grew up on that stuff too.
Yeah,
I would buy the books.
Yeah,
I could research all the characters. Which honestly, after looking back at it, when it was 5th and 6th grade, it was almost like reading softcore porn. Those comic books. It was like, my gosh, I can't believe that this naked elf is in here. This is kind of making me tingle in my pants a little bit.
That was not right. That was like deities and demigods from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. That's what it was. All the salacious pictures in there. Yeah, absolutely.
But it was cool. It was a cool game, and you could play it forever. And getting away from the sexual side of the house, the adolescent sexuality that came with it, which I don't think parents really realized at the time.
Yeah.
But it was fun. You could play. It's so cool that you still do it. And honestly, I think more kids should really get into that again.
I honestly think more people should. I mean, and whether it's D&D or any kind of tabletop game, the reason is because it. One of the things that one of the things like veterans have is we have common ground. And so it's hard sometimes to find common ground or shared experiences with civilians, or maybe with other veterans whose experiences differed from ours, and things like that. And it's a great way to socialize. It's a great way to create common ground for people just to drop all the sort of ancillary things in life and just be together in that setting. So
have an interaction, actual human interaction, not the forced split screen, which I've done that too. I have fun doing that too.
Yeah.
Not the Call of Duty forced split screen or something like that, where you're having interaction via a microphone and headphones.
Right.
No, you're right. There was something that was different about that. You just spend all day and just feel like you had a great day just hanging around with people, even if you didn't know them.
Right.
Till the first time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm Dungeons and Dragons, you nerd.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nerd.
Well, and Jack and I share a real deep love of comic books. He's more DC, I'm more Marvel. But we also geek out on comic books and things like that.
We got to get into that too. I know we don't have a lot of that, but I'm a huge comic book geek. I wish I would have kept all my comic books. I was a comic book collector and baseball card collector from when you could buy the packs for like a dime and then 25 cents. Still have all my baseball cards, all of them. Even have a Tony Dorsett rookie card, a Dan Marino rookie card. But I lost all my comic books, man.
That's rough. Yeah. I went back home a couple years ago and, to the Midwest where my parents live. My mom and my dad, different states. But And my mom, like she had like on my box of comics. I didn't even know. So, I have all these comics from the 80s and yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I thought we were going down the road to like, you had all the comic books and you had like the Spider-Man, whatever it was. And she threw them all away. I thought you were heading down that route.
Nope,
I was like, oh my gosh.
She had them all. Yeah.
Have you gone on eBay and seen what some of them are worth or?
Well, I've sent a few of them in to get graded and things like that. And I was happy.
Have you sold or?
No, I don't like to sell my comics generally.
It's tough to do that. And you're right. I've probably got six figures in baseball, literally, because I have sets when Derek Jeter was a rookie. I mean, I bought the whole set. And they go up but it's like, no, I don't want to get rid of these things. I just want to keep passing them along.
Absolutely. Like, and if you're not in a dire circumstance where you need the money, why,
why?
A lot of them have a lot of sentimental value.
They do. And getting in. I remember getting on my bike and riding down to the store when we could do that in society. Hey, Mom, I'm 10, and I'm going to go down to the corner store and go buy some baseball cards from the lawns I was mowing for $5 to mow a lawn. Yeah, you remember all that.
And that's when
satisfying.
But that's when they had them. When you could go to the corner store and they had the comic book racks.
Yes,
and and the baseball, the packs of
packs of Yep. Just Tops and Fleer was all the big thing at the time, and they had the gum inside, and like I said, they were all right next to each other, and it was like that was like an experience. It was fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Gosh, those good old. We need to bring those days back. I keep saying, but those were great days.
Yeah.
See, I don't even know because I'm not a comic book guy, but when I worked with Jack, we worked across the street from, I think it was Gotham Comics.
Sure.
Are all those still up and running in New York with everything going on?
Well, I mean, I don't know what's going on because of the epidemic and everything like that. But comic book stores, brick and mortar comic book stores, they were sort of going out of business anyway. Like more and more of them were shutting down.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people were getting them from online sources. Yeah. Like there are a lot of places where you get them online, and
I'm sure Amazon, like everything else.
Yeah. Well, I think you can get some on Amazon, but there are but there are tons of comic books that have online presence. An online presence that don't have like brick and mortar anymore.
Well, and a lot of that was like the transition from the little comic books to the graphic novels. So now they were all going into the big bookstores. You could go to Barnes and Noble or Books A Million.
Right.
And that was, I mean, which is not a bad thing because, one of the greatest books is a graphic novel. The Watchmen is still one of the greatest, books. Not a graphic novel, but the greatest books ever written. But it's a graphic novel.
Yeah.
And that was the start of it all. So you go now and some of these graphic novels are incredible. The new darker Batman graphic novels are fantastic. I know that to me, that's just a fancy way of saying, I read big comic books, but it makes me sound smarter.
Well, it's a novel. You're literary. Yeah.
It is, but you're right. It put all those comic book stores. We still have some around here, but they're not really comic book stores. There's comic books and collectible cards and collectible. Right. It's not just comic books. And so, it's sad again, because those are, again, another place you go in. It was just cool. Like putting them in cardboard boxes and they're in their sleeves and you just go through them and sometimes you find a gem and sometimes you don't. And those days really they're gone.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah. And, it's funny because Jack and I actually went into a comic book store, about a year ago and started talking to this guy and we were talking sort of about the state of the comic book business. And he goes, well, comic books have changed. He goes, it used to be that when you would, when we were young, you'd go in and there would be something on the cover that would sort of tell you what the story was inside, right? It would be a predicament that the hero was in, and it would give you a general idea of what the story was. And now, for better or worse, comic books are more like the covers are art. It's an art piece, and they're beautiful and they're amazing, and I love comic book art. Yeah. But it's definitely changed. It's not like you're not like browsing through the comics going, oh, this one looks interesting, or I want to read this one. Now it's just kind of an artistic cover, and you have to sort of know what the storyline is, or be familiar, be a fan of that title or that hero or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there still is definitely a culture for it. Because when Comic-Con comes to New York City, it's huge.
Oh, I go every year.
And it's a lot. It's definitely a different demographic now because you go on Instagram now and it's like, it is a lot of hot chicks cosplaying as whoever. You know, it's actually not as I guess Air Fingers quote nerdy anymore. It's kind of like open to everybody. It's a different community than it probably was when you guys were younger.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't go to any. I went to one comic book convention when I was a kid in the Midwest. It was a local one, and I went dressed up. Me and my buddies went dressed up as like D&D characters.
That's
so dumb. That's awesome. So dumb. Thank God there aren't pictures from that era. But thank God we didn't have social media back then. But I go to the New York Comic Con every year. In fact, the last year that they had it, because they obviously canceled it last year. But the year prior, I took Jack and his daughter for their first time, and it's awesome. And and comic books are a tiny, tiny portion of that now. Like they're like one or two rows of, 50 some odd rows or whatever of stuff. And it's a lot. Like it's an event. It's crowded. Like you have to be prepared for that. So.
That still would be fun. I've never been to a Comic-Con, and I still want to do one. That's like a bucket list thing, just to go there, not see the comic books, but you had to see even all the little rare figurines, like the brand new, I still have it. I got to find it. Like the brand new Luke Skywalker that you still had the sword, the lightsaber that came out of his, and you'll see those prepackaged. Yeah. And I don't, to me, I'm like, oh my, and they're thousands and thousands of dollars. And to me, I still think that's the coolest thing in the world. Like, man, I used to play with these things. Damn it. And then I think, well, damn it, why did I play with these things? Why didn't I save?
Right.
But it does. It brings you back to your childhood days, and then to see how much they're worth. And they are. The attention to detail. And some of those things are hand painted. They don't do that anymore. Yeah. And you marvel at the work that's put behind to make those things. Not just the comic books, but the figures that went along with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I would have thought 13 hours would have been like a golden opportunity for that, because I could have seen a 13 hours like Michael Bay panel at a Comic-Con, action figures of like you and Tig, and that would have been badass.
Brother, I tell you, politics are the son of a bitch, dude. I tell you what, man. And I think as much as they did support 13 hours Paramount and parts of Hollywood, there were extreme amounts on the other side that were just livid against it. And it just, it suffered on that side. It was like, hey, okay, we did our job. We got it out there. The truth's out there. We'll market it to these markets, but these markets that we know are left leaning, we're not going to market to them. And then we're just going to let it die.
Right.
And it still did well. Don't get me wrong. It did well. And I was great experience, but I was the same way. I was like, man, we have a following. I mean, there's action figures that people make of Tonto out there. It's not, people just make them. And then I also have a character on not Roblox, Minecraft. There's a Tonto on Minecraft.
That's awesome.
Somebody built, but that's what's saying the same thing. I mean, it would have been really cool if it was smart to do, but politics be damned, dude. And it just affects it, which is, again, hey, that's what was supposed to happen, but it would have been really cool, Ian. It would have. And there's still the possibility of that happening out there one of these days. Maybe I'll do it myself, and it'll be fun, because I enjoy that kind of stuff. I think it's really cool.
It's definitely, if you have any desire to do it, it's definitely something you should do. I mean, it's amazing. Like, for somebody, especially,
I'm a nerd, dude. I am the biggest nerd. I love comics. I listen to Sinatra. Yeah. Come on. I watch, my favorite show is probably Amazing World of Gumball, that I watched with my 5-year-old. I'm still a big 50-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And like I said, the figures, like for 13 hours, like Ian's talking about, I think that would be the coolest thing. Tonto with shorts and a Mickey Mouse shirt, because that's what I was wearing that night. I think that I'd be fighting them. Yeah, I'd be Tonto against Darth Vader.
Yeah, right.
Against each other, dude. So no, I would. People that get into different areas, and I think, like Ian said, and you've probably said on your show before as well, that Rangers and special ops guys get pigeonholed into this alpha male type, but we're really not. We're very eclectic. There's so many different personalities. I mean, you got Leo Jenkins that writes poetry.
Yeah.
I mean, so and we enjoyed the new stuff. We just enjoyed the experience. And
Right.
that's what I dig about special ops guys is they just dig the experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And I imagine like a lot of them did read comics growing up because not all of them, but when you volunteer for, for special operations,
Yeah.
you obviously have some sort of, I don't know if it's a hero thing or, but you see yourself, as somebody who
As a protector
can make a difference.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're a protector. The hero complex is not the right term, but
Right.
it is a protector. Hey, I'm going to go do good. I'm going to go fight the bad guys, and I'm going to fight the antagonists, and I'm going to win.
Right.
In the name of truth, liberty, and justice.
Right.
But that was the country also. That was also a huge thing with this country, which was truth, liberty, justice, patriotism when we were growing up. Where
Sure.
now it's kind of gets skewed with this movement here and this movement here. And what exactly is truth, liberty, and justice? Well, this group calls it one thing, but this group in America calls it another thing. But when we were growing up, no, it was for everybody. That's truth, liberty, and justice.
Right.
And that's what Superman was all about.
Right.
Even Batman was about doing the right thing and defeating evil. And I think all of us, I agree with you. All of us that went in are that way. We're like, no, we're fighting evil. That's what we believe we're going to do when we sign up. And then we get to basic training and we're like, holy shit, what did we do? This is stupid. What the dumbest thing
Try
ever.
doing 3 basics.
Hope you guys are enjoying this episode so far with Dave Parke. Fascinating discussion. And yes, we talk more about more than just about comic books and nerd culture, as you'll hear as this episode goes on. But before we do, we're really excited to have Thadia back on board with us.
Yeah.
And they put out some awesome stuff. Thadia, inspired by the heroic and worn by the courageous and brave. Thadia was created to help inspire individuals to personify their courage and bravery by providing enhanced tech apparel with meaning and purpose. From the heroic individuals who protect us to the athlete to the everyday individual, Thadia represents the courage and bravery within each one of us. It is these characteristics which propels us to all push through adversity so we may strive to achieve our goals. Like so many others have already done, experience the Thadia brand so you too can wear the first ever apparel brand to literally mean courageous and brave. And before I give you the website, I wear their stuff all the time. You are always wearing their stuff. Your wife is. And one of the big things right now that you may have seen on their social media is they're getting away from any production in China. They're getting rid of stock, so you might receive some stuff from when they were pressing stuff in China. But at this point, Scott is a patriot, and he said, I want to carefully select countries that we want to work with to produce our goods and get the hell out of China, quite honestly.
And that says a lot for their integrity and their ethics, because there are a lot of those companies, even in the 2A world, that, China's the enemy, but all their stuff is being made in China. That's just hypocrisy at its finest. And that shows that Thadia, to me, and Scott's awesome, fantastic guy over there, Scott Talent, but Thadia has integrity. And that's something that we want on our show with our sponsors. And also on top of that, it's great gear. I wear their stuff. You see it all the time. Fantastic, soft working materials. And I sweat a ton, guys, and it doesn't stink. So I stink, but the clothes come back every time. Fantastic stuff. Check them out. And their t-shirts, shorts, and we'll be having running shorts made soon. Running shorts are coming.
Nice. And in this weather, I've been rocking the sweatpants all the time.
Oh, they're awesome, aren't they? The sweatpants, it's -2 it's -2 yesterday. It was -11 the day before.
Jeez.
And I can wear those gray sweats out and the boys feel good down there. They're nice and warm. It's perfect. It's outstanding stuff.
Yeah, so check them out now. Much appreciation for them. So visit Thadia on Instagram at Thadia _co, which is THADDEA_co, and online at THADDEA.com. Once again, the link to that will be in the description of the episode to see all Thadia products. And of course, the KTP apparel line, the apparel line created by this beautiful man in honor of former U.S. Army Ranger and 2012 Benghazi survivor Chris Tonto Peranto.
Good, but my wife looks a hell of a lot better in them than I do, guys. So, but thank you, Ian. Thank you so much for making me feel sexy, even just for a little bit.
So, be courageous, be brave, Thadia. And of course, every show that we do, Fort Scott Munitions is on board with us. Fort Scott Munitions is a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition that is designed to tumble upon impact in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military-grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with each pull of the trigger. And I know that with your course coming up in Florida, Paisley, Florida, February 20th to the 21st, they supply you guys with a lot of the ammo that you use.
It's best ammo out there by far. The Timberline Impact is revolutionary, and again, another company that has a loads of integrity. They always do what they say, and you know what I love about them. Even with orders coming in now, whether it's an order of 20 rounds or an order of 2,000 rounds, it's the customer first. So as soon as, because they're short on ammo right now, like everybody else. Yeah. But if you order it, they're not going to put a bigger order in front of a smaller order just because to make more money. And Ryan Kraft, the owner of Fort Scott Munitions, I talked to him about that yesterday. And he said, Chris, it doesn't matter. The order, whatever comes in, is the order we send out. It doesn't make a difference if it's small or large. And to me, again, that shows business ethics and some integrity, which is what we look for on the show with our sponsors.
100%. That's why we've been working with them since the very beginning. So they're available throughout privately owned businesses everywhere and directly online at fortscottmunitions.com. That's FortScottmunitions. If you're listening while you're driving or anything like that, you just go to the description later. You'll see it right there. And you can use our exclusive promo code Battleline for 15% off your order. Only available to listeners of the Battleline podcast. FortScottMunitions.com, promo code Battleline for 15% off. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline podcast. As promised, we get into way more than just comic books and superheroes. So back to our interview with the one and only legend in the community, Dave Parke. Yeah, well, we should get into that because with your background, I mean, Chris, I don't know how many guys you know, like I said, with Dave's background, and I know you were down. I feel you downplay it when I said we'd love to have you on, and you're like, well, I haven't done much. I mean, you served in 3 different branches of the military, and in special operations, and in the contracting world.
Yeah, technically 4 branches, but I don't. But
who was the 4th?
It was the Air Force and a Guard unit for a very brief period of time. But I did not go through their basic. I didn't go. I was basically there waiting to go through. It was a pararescue unit, a reserve or Guard. I can't remember now. But it was the 129th pararescue out at Moffett at the time, and this is years and years ago. And I was there for maybe like 3 or 4 months, like on man days, which is like you get paid a daily rate. You don't get a monthly military salary, but they divide it. I mean, you don't make anything. And I was sleeping on a cot, and I was waiting for a chance to go through the pipeline, with that. And I just waited so long that there was a reserve just turned National Guard Special Forces unit that was kind of across the road or near there. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go there. But that was after the Navy. So I went to the Marine Corps first, and I was a Marine Corps reservist. I was an Anglico. And I was only there for a year when the Gulf War started, the first Gulf War. Mm-hmm. And, we thought we were going to war, and I wasn't airborne qualified at the time. I had been through like Marine boot and then the air naval gunfire training and stuff like that.
So I'm sorry, just to give timeline. So where did you start?
I started in the Marine Corps when I was 19.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And the Marine Corps Reserve, because I didn't know if, when you've never been in the military, I think, at least for me, I thought every day was going to be like boot camp. Right. I thought that was what the military was like. And so I didn't know if I would, I had thought about the military when I was, when I was younger. But it wasn't until I was doing sales when I was 19. I moved out to California and I was bored. And I was like, and I was walking around like, I think the Torrance Mall one day, and there was a recruiting office. I was like, I'm going to go join the Marines, because in my mind, like the Marines were the toughest and I wanted to like do that. And so I signed up for it and you know how a recruiter is. Oh, you should go, be a linguist or do this or do that. And I'm like, well, I want to jump out of airplanes. And he goes, no, but Marines don't jump out of airplanes. And I go, well, that's what I want to do. And so finally he goes, okay, well, there's a unit that does jump out of airplanes. And so I signed up for Anglico, went to Marine Boot, went to Fort Sill for artillery. I think I went out to Coronado for naval gunfire, and then went to my unit. And, that was a drill situation. So it was, and then the Gulf War started, but I hadn't been to jump school yet. So I wasn't going to be on a FIC team or a forward control team or whatever. And we thought we were going to be at war for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it like, it was a week? Wasn't it a week or something like that? I mean, it's just like, bam, we're done.
So in that week, I tried to go active duty Marines, but they wouldn't take me because they considered me prior service, and they weren't taking prior service at the time.
Huh.
So, having been through Marine boot camp, the only respectable thing to do was to either be a Marine or to be a Navy corpsman. Yeah. So I transferred. So I joined the Navy. Like my unit released me conditionally, and I went to the Navy, and I went back through Navy boot camp, like all of Navy boot camp.
So you went back through you had to go through Great Lakes?
No, I went back to San Diego. I did both. I did both my boot camps in San Diego.
So when they still had boot camp, gotcha. Yeah. I know we're old as shit, dude. Old as dirt. I get it. Yeah.
Do they not have Navy boot camp in San Diego?
No, it's all at Great Lakes.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
All of it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Navy guys, but as far as I know now, yeah, it's all in Great Lakes, Michigan.
That would be like we would hear about how miserable it was there.
It's Chicago. It's North Chicago.
Yeah. San Diego was great. San Diego, anywhere you go through Marine boot camp, it's going to suck. I'm sure Parris Island sucked more than San Diego, but when you're standing out on the grinder for hours and hours and hours, it doesn't matter where you are, your feet are going to like blister, But yeah, so I went to Navy boot camp. I went to Corps School in San Diego, Corpsman School in San Diego. And by the time I finished Corps School, the war was over, right? So my big dream was to go be a corpsman with the Marines, and I couldn't get to the Marines because they had flooded the Marines with corpsmen in anticipation of the war and casualties. So I was at Balboa Hospital for a while trying to figure out where I was going to go. I didn't have like a follow on, and I worked like in the ER for a bit, and then I got to know like the career counselor, and she liked me. So she sent, she goes, well, what do you want to do? And I go, well, being a diver would be cool. So she sent me to dive school. And I was a dive medical technician. So my school was actually second class dive school, first class dive school, and then dive medicine. So it was like a full like 8-9 months of training. And then I was aboard the USS Samuel Gompers for a few years.
Yeah, because this is, and a lot of people, and even me, it's as far as being a corpsman, a Navy dive corpsman. I've always been interested. What do they teach you when you're going through medical treatment underwater? How does that? Talk about that. Everything I've done, goat lab. I've done everything above water.
Right.
I'm not a medic.
Right.
But enough that the training that we had to go through, being the units we were with. So
yeah.
But I've never had to do that. How does that differentiate from being on land? What makes it more difficult besides obviously being in water? How do you do that?
Right.
To me, that just sounds so intense.
Right. So with dive medicine, it's not really something you do in the water. Like the idea is to get somebody who's either injured or because it's industrial work, right? You're working around heavy items. You're doing a lot of cutting or ship's husbandry, things like that. So the idea is either they're injured or when they surface, they have some sort of dive illness, decompression sickness.
Like decompression, the bends or something like that.
Exactly. So a lot of it is about identification of those types of things, and then the treatment. And the treatment is pressure oriented. So, you get them into a pressure chamber and you slam them down. So it has a lot to do with dive traumas,
Gotcha.
understanding those, understanding how to treat them. It was an amazing course. It was a great course.
Oh, I bet. I can't even imagine adding that variable into a broken arm. How much more difficult just being underwater with a broken arm, what you have to do to address that. I mean, where are you going to splint it? Well, go find some two tree branches, and we got some tape, or you don't have that underwater.
Right. And the thing is somebody does get hurt underwater, then a lot of times that will lead to a dive illness, which is a compounding type of issue.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought of that.
Yeah. So if they get hurt, like if they lose consciousness, if things like that happen, then they might come up too quickly, or they may not. Maybe they can't do a decompression stop or whatever else. So now not only are you dealing with the trauma, but you're dealing with the pressure-related illness. Wow. So any treatment of the trauma you're doing, you may have to do inside the chamber, depending on how serious their diving illness is, right? So yeah, but it was a great job. The Navy, I had so much fun. It is obviously a very different experience than Ranger Battalion is. Shipboard life is different. You're basically living in an industrial environment, almost like in a factory or something like that. Yeah, it was great. Our dive locker had maybe 9 guys at any given time in it, and super, super tight, super close.
Yeah.
And then I left the Navy, and when I left the Navy, I was planning on going to pararescue because I was already in the medical field, and and so that's when I went to Moffett, and just got tired of waiting for to get accepted into the pipeline. Scheduling the physicals, and because you have to do the hyperbarics and everything like that, and they were great guys. It was a great unit. They did a lot of amazing stuff. And even during a peacetime military, those pararescue units are always busy. Yeah. And they're just really, really skilled individuals. And so I went and joined an SF unit, but unfortunately that unit had just gone from reserve to guard, like all the SF units had at the time. So they were also having an issue, getting guys into their pipeline. There was just a big, all this sort of administrative stuff going on. So I was there for probably a year. And
you're in the long tab prep, basically with 19th or 20th group. And you're in that where you go and you're just prepped to go to Q course. You're prepped to go to selection. We had guys in that too when I was in the 19th group, and it's great for them, but it's just, God, it can be a year or 2 years of just coming and getting your ass smoked.
And that's what it was. It was 5th of the 19th, and it had moved from Moffett to, I think, San Francisco or somewhere near that. I can't remember now. But yeah, we just waited, and we went to pre-SFAS, and and I did my PLDC then and stuff like that. But finally, I'm like, what was funny is during that time, I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to join the French Foreign Legion. That's what I'm going to do. So, I mailed off, I sent off, I got their address and I sent off, and they send you this information packet back about how you get there. You fly there, and they tell you which train or bus to take and how to get to their office, and all this stuff. And during that time, there were still bookstores. There aren't that many bookstores now, but there were still bookstores. And so I would go to the bookstores and just sit a Barnes and Noble or whatever, and just sit and read, these books on the French Foreign Legion. And it was almost and they didn't surrender and they died to a man, and they didn't surrender and they died to a man. And I was like, man, that doesn't sound too amazing to me. It just didn't sound awesome.
Yeah.
And so I was, there were a couple of former Rangers in my SF unit, and they were both like, dude, if you want to just really go live the life, and do it and be it, go be a Ranger. I was like, okay, cool. So I enlisted in the Army, and I mean, I got lucky because, like a dum-dum, even knowing everything I knew about enlisting and the chances you take, I didn't get a Ranger contract.
You didn't get a Ranger contract.
I went
Wow.
in. I went in 18 X-ray, or not 18 X-ray. That's dumb. 11 X-ray.
11 X-ray,
right?
Yep.
Which was like
Yep.
open, like they could assign you
Yep.
needs of the
Yep.
Army. I could have been, mechanized infantry or a
You could have been
mortarman.
You could have been a Charlie or a Mike. I mean, that's what happened. Guys going in X-ray. If you don't have 11 Bravo popped on with now it's option 40, but at my time it was it was just a RIP contract.
Right. Right.
Yeah. You would get pushed off to Fort Hood, or you get pushed off and be a Charlie and go up to 10th Mountain and carry mortars around the mountains all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I really, not even thinking about it, because I just figured, well, I'll get there and, I'll do well in basic, and I'll go to airborne and, I'll volunteer and all this stuff. And fortunately, that's how it happened.
You did? You got your slot after airborne? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, dude, you got lucky as hell. Most of those guys go to 82nd. They're like, no, you're getting out of go to 82nd.
Yeah. Yeah. I got, super lucky. And so, so then I went to 2nd Ranger Battalion and, spent a year on the line and then went to the sniper section. And I don't know how they're set up now. And just before I had gotten there, this is 97. Just before I got there, the snipers had been a company level asset.
Yep.
And they had just moved to HHC.
Yep.
And so then I went over. Yeah.
That's how it was when I was there. They were company, but they kept popping them. They're like, well, we'll put them with the company asset again.
Right.
No, let's put them back in HHC. And when I left, they were back with HHC, and I think they still are. But and you probably know this as well. They've developed a Delta company now.
I've heard that.
Yeah, which is like they kind of modeled it off. I'm assuming off of SF with their own support people.
Right.
So Rangers have their own support guys now, but I think snipers is part of that. But again, I'm saying I've been out so long.
Yeah, and I met a lot of Rangers and worked with Rangers, overseas, in theater, and Ranger battalions or regiments a very different place now. It's very professionalized.
Yeah.
They seem to take really good care of the guys. There are options, for growth, their dog teams or their interrogation teams or all these different things that really were not, available.
No, we were in the line or in a weapon squad.
Right.
You're a sniper.
Yeah.
Or you're pushing a mortar plate for 30 miles.
Right.
It's just, but to say that that's a bad thing, I don't think it was. I don't think it was bad because it did make you tough as hell.
Right.
It made you salty and tough. But you're right; those options weren't there. And what I saw when I was with GRS at the time, and we were working sometimes with task force or what was going on and why they went that way from my outward view, because I wasn't part of them at the time. I was working with the agency at the time. It was because Delta and SEAL Team 6 were turning down so many missions that Rangers were just grabbing everything, and they were just realizing, hey, wait a second, we are big boys. Now we need to develop where we're self-sufficient, where we don't have to ask for support, and that we can have other assets. So we don't have to go borrow a K9 team.
Right.
We don't have to go borrow a recon unit. We've got RD that's available, and RD works for everybody. They're awesome. But it was like, let's just become self-sufficient. Screw everybody else. Let's just do it. And I saw that as well. And I was like, man, I was kind of jealous, like shit.
Right. Well, and
can I rejoin?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Well, I was going to say, with you talk about RRD, RRD went from the Ranger Regimental Detachment, I'm sorry,
recon. Yep.
Yeah, the Regimental Recon, right? Regimental Recon Detachment.
Yep.
Went from a regimental from a regiment level asset to supporting, the regiment to a national level asset where they had almost nothing to do at times with regiment. So I guess the battalions stood up their own recce units.
They're back to where, that was the same thing. We had a recce unit. Then we didn't. Then recce and snipers were the same, and then snipers were recce. But when I left, they were standing up the recce unit again at a regimental side because RD got pushed to MacDill. They got pushed, and now they were a SOCOM element. And that's another thing. I think people that don't know Ranger Battalion, if they would study a little bit. Regimental recon is probably, to me, is probably one of the best, if not the best recon unit. I think, at least in our service, they are incredible, and their tryouts, their vetting process is, Jesus, it's unbelievable.
They really are. I mean, unacknowledged, studs. They and like you say, they're really, really good at what they do, and almost nobody knows about them.
Know about them. Yeah. I remember you wouldn't know if you're at battalion and we were in the high and tight days unless you saw a guy walking by with long hair and he had his tab and his scroll and like, who the hell is that guy?
And his halo,
and he's got his halo wings and like long hair, halo wings. The first time I saw RRD guy come back through, and I was like, how come he gets long hair and he's got his E6 or his E7? And then like, that's an RD dude. And then I started to look at that like, my gosh, yeah, okay. He deserves to do whatever the hell he wants to do.
Yeah.
But when you got in the Army and you stayed at regiment, you've done those three things. Did you not want to stay and time ran out, or did you find, what happened after that? Cause you were doing, you basically had everything you could have wanted, all the experience that you wanted, and moving up in leadership, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm a dilettante, and I'm never like that satisfied. It was sort of the same when I was in the Navy. I was at a position where if I would have went like independent duty corpsman, which is almost like an 18 Delta, only in, more of a naval capacity, but it's a long course where, sort of just under a PA, I guess, in what they do. I actually, so I was actually a participant in a bar fight.
It happens. Was it in Tacoma? Was it in Puyallup, Tacoma?
Oh, they were always in
Seattle.
They were always in Tacoma.
Always in Tacoma.
No, well, not always. Sometimes in Seattle, but almost. But anyway, a good friend of mine got into an altercation.
Levels? What was the bar? Levels?
No, it was not Mad Dog. Something like that. I'm thinking like Mad Dog in the Fog in Hong Kong, but I can't remember. I can't remember what it was called.
I'm sorry. I'm reminiscing. The listeners are like, Tano, shut the hell up. Let him talk.
No.
Like I'm just reminiscing because I'm remembering all that down there.
Yeah. And there were always bar fights. Always. Was Levels the one on the corner with the glass windows? Yeah. We've had. There were like multi-block brawls there because in order to get back to battalion, in order to get back to the base, you passed by that bar going to the freeway, on the way to the freeway. So I remember one night in particular when events happened, and so the sniper section was involved in this brawl that was on the streets and spilled out. And cars driving by would slam on their brakes, and doors would fly open, and dudes with high-end tights would run out and start hitting anybody that didn't have a high-end tight. It was crazy. Those and very interesting days. But no, a friend of mine got in an altercation, spilled out on the street, and a precursor to this is selection. Was the screening team was coming out to like run the PT test to go to selection. And at the time I thought, okay, well, I'm either going to go to selection, get into Delta or I'm going to go to college. So I, took my SATs and, started applying to colleges and things like that. But before the selection team got there, like 3 or 4 weeks before they got there, I got in an altercation. It's just me and a buddy. We finished the altercation. But
you can't go into detail about.
Yeah. So my buddy Brad was one of those guys. He was, kind of tall, kind of lanky, but not like a real big guy. But he was just one of those guys who was like a knockout artist, right? Every time he connected, he'd just like floor somebody. And so I don't I don't exactly know what the circumstances were that led to. I was like dancing with some girl. I don't know what the circumstances were that led to the fight inside, but I know that Brad was so drunk that he could barely stand up. But he laid this guy out, and then he comes up to me and goes, "We gotta go, we gotta go." And I'm like, "Okay." So we're leaving the bar. We get outside, and like 3 or 4 dudes come out, and they all, this guy's friends. So we get into it with them.
And are these military guys, or
who knows?
Okay,
who knows? Like sometime, because other units at Fort Lewis didn't have high and tights. So it was hard to tell when it's other military guys or whatever. Sometimes it was, but sometimes it wasn't. So anyway, we fight these guys, and then we're done and we finish them off. But then the bouncers come out and they're like, "You guys got to go," blah blah. And I'm like, yeah. So again, Brad could barely walk. So like I've got his arm over my shoulder, and we're walking down the street, and these bouncers are still following us. And this one bouncer who was very large, like very, very large, probably pushing 300 pounds, is yelling at us. And the other two kind of bouncers are like walking behind him, trying to tell him to calm down. And then about a half a block away from the bar, he just kind of rushes us from behind and hits me in the back. And, I go down, and Brad goes flying, and my wrist kind of hurt, but I was like, whatever. So I get up and I start talking smack, and he's talking smack. And finally, the other bouncers pulled them off. And then I get Brad and we go. Well, it turned out I broke my scaphoid in my wrist, right?
Oh,
which is like a skateboard accident when you fall sort of flat handed. And so I had surgery to repair it and casted. So now I'm in a cast, like a half cast or a cast going up to my, palm. And the selection team comes around, and
they don't reschedule. You're either you do it or you don't.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you have a broken leg or not. If you want in, we're not rescheduling it for you, and we won't be back for who knows.
Exactly. So I did it, and I passed. I was doing just you're fit.
Yep.
When you're fit. But the sniper section leader, was very familiar with Green or with Delta, and he was like, and he had been actually training me up. He'd been taking me out during PT in the mornings and rucking with me and things like that. And he's like, "You're not going to go." And I'm like, "Well, they said I could." Because when I went, I said, "Hey, can I go with this?" And they're like, "You can do whatever you want. We're not going to make any special allowances for you, but you can do whatever you want." So I passed the PT test, but then my sniper leader was like, the section leader was like, "You're not going to go." And I'm like, "But I can do it." And he goes, "You can." He goes, "You need both hands. Like, you're going in the fall, and the terrain is nasty. The hills are slippery. You've got to be able to grab hold of stuff. You're just going to hurt yourself more. You're not going to make a good showing. Like, you're not going to go." And so I respected what, he was saying.
Sure.
So, I decided, okay, well, I'll just go to college. And, so I applied to, of course, being, having an overestimated opinion of myself. I applied to Harvard, Columbia, and Georgetown, and that was it, right? And I didn't get into Georgetown. I got waitlisted at Harvard, and I got accepted into Columbia.
Which is where Jack Murphy went.
Right, right. And so that's what I was planning on doing. But I wanted, and for some reason in my mind, and this is early 2000 when I got out, and I was like, well, I want to major in poli-sci, and I don't know why, right? I want to major in poli-sci and learn Arabic. But I don't want to learn Arabic in college, like I want the military. I want to go to DLI. I want to go to the
DLAB.
Yeah. And so I started calling around all these National Guard units, intelligence guard units, every place to find a military intelligence unit that would send me to DLI. And the problem is every recruiter I called, like a statewide recruiter or whatever, would when they found out that I was, Ranger tabbed and, whatever, they'd be like, "Oh, we have an air assault unit. We'll promote you to E6 right away, and we'll give you an E7 billet." And I'm like, I don't want to be in your air assault unit. Like, I want to learn Arabic. So finally, I found a SOT A team, a special operations team Alpha, which is the SIGINT portion of like a special forces group.
Like ODA, they're the support for the ODA teams.
Right.
The ODAs, they're their intel, they're SIG intel guys.
Right.
And a lot of them are pretty solid guys. I mean, there's some dirt bags on there, but there's a lot that are just young guys that are motivated, that are waiting for a long tab slot that get in there. Some of them are even tabbed.
Well, they're so they're supposed to be tabbed. That's one of the things. SOT A's, because they're SIGINTers, they're intelligence people. Who go into an operational capacity, which most intel people don't.
And for the audience, I know human is human intelligence. Well, I know of SIGINT. What's the
sure? So it's signals intelligence.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So
what's the difference for
So human deals with people, right?
Yeah.
You run sources, human beings, or you collect from people. With signals intelligence, that's like the NSA, right? They collect, and a lot of SIGINTers go to the NSA. That's their assignment, their duty assignment. So you're wearing a set of headphones and maybe listening to telephone communications or listening to radio traffic or whatever else. So you need to be a linguist, and then you also need to be trained in understanding, different types of radio transmissions and things like that to know what you're listening to. So they said they would send me to DLI, to the Defense Language Institute. And so I left Ranger Battalion in like March of 2000, drove cross country for a drill to meet my team, and drove back and started DLI in like April of 2000, like a month later. And it was funny going from like Ranger Battalion to DLI because they told me where my barracks was. And so I walk in this building, and the first thing I encounter is a female soldier. And I'm dragging like 2 duffel bags, and I go flush. I'm like, oh my God. Like I walked in the wrong place. Like I'm going to be in so much trouble. Like I thought I'd walked into the female barracks, and she goes, hi. And I go, hi. She goes, can I, what, you look lost. And I said, yeah, right here it says that I'm in this building and that's my room. But it must be wrong. She goes,
there's no co-ed. We don't know no co-ed.
Yeah. And she goes, well, and she takes my sheet and she goes, no, that's your room. I'm like, really? And I called my friends that, I went into my room. Well, I was right by the day room. I went in and dropped my bags, and I walked in the day room, and there was a group of guys and girls sitting around. And I walked back in my room, and I call, one of my buddies at Ranger Battalion, and I tell him, hey, get everybody on the phone, in the sniper site. And they all get on the phone, and I go, dude, you guys have got to get to DLI. You have got to get here.
So I'm going to assume that the woman is pretty attractive too then, or?
Yeah. It's he's a come on, he's a Joe, man. Everyone.
Yeah.
Because especially coming from Ranger Battalion, where you go through the gates, you don't see a woman again till you leave the gates.
Right.
That's not normal.
Right.
It's a shock to the system.
It was distracting. It was distracting. DLI was a very distracting time. And for guys who had been Rangers, for guys who were Green Beret, for guys who were SEALs, it's a very distracting time because there are a lot of impressionable.
Well, you're putting alpha females and alpha males together, and either say it or not, it's sometimes not a great time to do that because you're brand new to it. I went through ROTC, Green to Gold, and I showed up and I was going through a nursing school to get my commission, and I did the Green to Gold. I was just, oh my gosh, what this is weird. And then they find out you're a Ranger and you got your tab.
That's the thing, right?
Now you're a rock star,
right? Because that's exactly it. Because DLI, it's an AIT. It's part of an AIT. It's an AIT school, right? I mean, not just people in AIT go there, but the vast majority of people there, and AIT is advanced. Is it advanced initial training?
Advanced initial training or advanced individual?
Oh, it might be advanced individual training, but it's the school it's one of the schools that people go to after boot camp. So when these people see a Ranger or a Green Beret or a SEAL, you are like a rock star.
You are.
You know.
You're like,
so I was there for 15 months, learning Arabic. In fact, we had a long break because it's a 15-month school. And during that break, I decided to, fly to, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I decided I was going to fly to Atlanta to see some of my buddies that were at Benning for BNOC, and then just take like a week taking military hops back to California, right? Well, when I went to the Atlanta airport to their MAC terminal, their military air, basically.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I said, it was like on a Sunday, and I said, well, I would like, I want to go, I want to go west. Anywhere you're going, I'll go. Just want to go west. And they said, well, we don't have anything going west right now. We only have one flight today. Like, we only have one flight on Sundays. And I go, okay, where's that going? I go, well, it's Germany. I go, okay, I'll go there. So I flew to Germany. And then I walked around the German airport for a while, like looking at all these different flights to different places. And it was almost like a bazaar at the time, because you had all these really podunk, like small airlines flying to like little countries or whatever. And so I decided to go to Morocco. I bought like my return ticket and all that stuff. And I went to Morocco, and I spent like a week in Morocco. Cool. Just sort of on a whim. Yeah.
Did you ever make it back to DLI?
I did. By the time I got back to DLI, fortunately, like I said, I had bought my ticket. I had all my travel arranged. But I had no money. I didn't eat. Like, I was eating peanuts. I was eating peanuts on the flight from New York to San Francisco, because I had no money left at all.
And that's cool. But at that time, that's all you needed, man.
Yeah.
Just give me some more. I just needed some energy. I don't care what it is. Just give me the peanuts. Yeah. The best. That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And Morocco was a great place. Like, I had an amazing time. When I was booking my flight, the person at the desk said, well, you're going to fly into Casablanca, but don't stay there. Don't stay there, because it's just an industrial town. You won't have a good time. You should go to either Marrakesh or, one of these other places. And I said, okay, I'll go to Marrakesh. So that's what I did. I arranged my travel, went to Marrakesh, had an amazing time. I stayed in a little house with some Moroccan, rented a room with these Moroccan hosts, and they took me around, and it was just great.
Cool, man. And fast forwarding a little bit,
yeah.
And I know, there's stuff you can get into, stuff you can't get into. That's, completely up to you, of course. But it wasn't until you joined the contracting world that you saw combat in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Right. So I graduated DLI 1 month after 9/11. Right. And my unit was already spinning up to deploy, and I still had my follow-on training, the actual signals intelligence training. And so, my team chief, Greg, was like, hey, you need to get out of there. We're spinning up, like, we're getting mobilized. You need to get here. Out in West Virginia. It was 2nd and 19th out of West Virginia. And so I talked to the staff, and the training was down in San Angelo, Texas. And I talked to the staff there and said, hey, look, I need to go. This is like a 6-week course or whatever. I need to go. And they're like, okay. So they basically walked me through like 4 weeks of training, in probably, 6 days, 7 days. They would just prep me for the test. I'd take the test, and then they prep me for the next test, and I'd take the test. And then I flew out to West Virginia. My unit had already been mobilized. And so I was trying to mobilized with them. Like my team chief, the intel chief, officer, everybody was trying. They talked to the general who was like the state adjutant or whatever. Like, hey, we need him with us. Like he's the only actual Ranger qualified, like infantry guy that the SADE has, right? And so I just waited, and they deployed, and they asked me not to do anything, not to go anywhere. That I was going to, they were going to get me mobilized, and time. And the thing is, after everybody mobilized, it's really weird that I guess the process, because they wouldn't mobilize an individual, right?
Yeah.
So I was sitting there waiting, and it didn't happen. So I was again back on man days, going broke basically. And I waited like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and finally I was like, I got to get a job. Like I've got to do something. So, through some contacts and, whatnot, I started contracting, and the first place I went was Guantanamo Bay. And I was in Gitmo for like 3 months, was part of the interrogations going on there for a while. Then went to Afghanistan for a while. And then I think a couple trips to Afghanistan. I don't remember. A couple trips to Afghanistan, and then got pulled out of Afghanistan because Iraq was ramping up. Nobody knew about it, but it got pulled back to Bragg for the workup for the invasion. Deployed with JSOC to Saudi, and then crossed the border there as part of the invasion. Wound up in Tikrit and broke my back in Saddam Hussein's pool.
What? Okay, come on. We can't pass that story. You got to tell you. Okay, stop right there. We're gonna go into that chapter. What did you do?
So I'm not sure. I probably haven't mentioned it yet, but I'm a dumbass. and I was walking through his palace. I didn't have night vision. And the sun had gone down, and it was like pitch black. And I stepped inside a room, and I knew it was a big room. Like I could feel that it was a big room. And because it was in a, damn Disney or whatever, because it was a palace, because it was a castle, I thought I was in a ballroom, right? I don't know why, but in my mind, I was in a ballroom. But I could feel the space, I could feel the space around it.
The acoustics probably.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of noise, but
You can. It's just the air feels, I don't know, lighter. Right. I got more air to breathe when you walk in an open space like that in a huge. It's the weirdest feeling.
So I'm walking forward, and I take a step, and as I start to settle my weight down, there's nothing. There's nothing. And so I sort of pull my body back. Unfortunately, I had been a gymnast and a wrestler in high school and had good, sort of body awareness. So I sort of maintained an upright posture as I stepped out into the void. and I thought I was expecting, because again, it's a ballroom, and now it has a sunken dance floor. Right? That's what my mind is doing. So I'm waiting, sort of bracing myself for the shock of hitting that 3-foot drop into a sunken dance floor.
And you just kept going.
And there was nothing. Yeah. And then
you're lucky you're not paralyzed. That's how people.
One, I was super, super lucky that I didn't tumble. Right? That I didn't tumble. And when you are falling in pitch blackness, it takes forever. I think it was 16 feet. It takes forever. And I didn't know. Now I'm is this construction? Am I falling into the middle of the earth? I have no idea. I have no idea. And so I fall. And of course, a million things are going on in my head as I'm falling. And primarily fuck. Fuck. And then I hit like on one foot, and then I go down, to my knees, my hands, and couldn't feel anything.
So you had a good fall.
Oh yeah.
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 But I'm saying, like, the way you fell, the fact that, I mean, you fell into your hands, right?
Well, I fell onto the foot that I'd stepped out with, and then failing to do a proper PLF, parachute landing fall.
But that's I mean, had you have not done that, you'd be screwed. We wouldn't be talking to you.
Yeah. Were you wearing any kit? Did you have body armor on? Did you have anything weighted you down?
No, I was light.
Okay, I mean that, but honestly, body armor. I've seen guys fall with that, and sometimes it because the body armor takes the brunt of and they actually pop right up. They may be a little sore, but
yeah, for sure. And I think it depends on how you land, right? Because it's definitely a lot of extra weight.
Yeah,
so at first I couldn't feel anything, my legs or anything, and I thought I was paralyzed. And I immediately thought, because I was not engaged, but I was dating somebody at the time, and I was planning on asking her to marry me. In fact, before crossing the border, I told my best friend who was in Delta that I'm going to ask her to marry me. And so I'm there at the bottom of this pool, and I can't, I'm sure I'm paralyzed because I can't feel anything. And I thought, well, I can't do this anymore. What am I going to do? And I go, well, I guess I'll be a writer. Because that's just anybody can. I mean, because that's obviously the solution. Again, I want to say again, I am a dumbass. And so eventually I was found and pulled out.
How long? Because you were by yourself completely?
For the most part,
How long were you stuck in a pool?
I have no idea. I mean, 15, 20, 30 minutes. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And of course, then comes the morphine, which is amazing. Morphine is just amazing. And then I get medevaced. But where I landed, and then where they had to they transported me by land from someplace to someplace, and the morphine wore off, and the people transporting me, I guess, didn't have morphine because it was a horrible ride. And then they got medevac to Landstuhl, Germany.
Okay.
And I was there for a while. And then I got, pulled by the States, and I had, I had broken back. So, 3 compression fractures, like in my L1, L2, L3. But eventually, after laying around and getting fat, for a while, I was operational again. And then from there, I think I went back to Afghanistan. And then, and picking up different contracts. Then another contract, went back to Iraq and was in and out of there about 6 to 8 months a year for 3 years.
Sure.
Doing a lot of really fun stuff, a lot of great stuff. And then back to Afghanistan for another 3 years, for 6 to 8 months.
And this was almost linguistic stuff, language being interpretation or being attached to an intelligence like humans. You get into as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, some of it was, and then some of it was there were the contracts out there to train up indigenous,
training,
training, and going out on operations with them and stuff like that, mentoring them and things like that.
That's awesome, man.
So just a lot of stuff like that, and then in 2010. Around 2008, about the time my marriage fell apart, because I did ask her to marry me. She did say yes. And then she got tired of me being gone all the time, which, who can blame a woman for that?
I always find that shocking when a guy that's never home and his wife finally says to hell with it, and he's completely shocked that that's happened. I never could figure that out. Guys, because I happened to me too.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in shock. It was, well, I mean, this is what would you do if you were in her position?
Well,
and it would never I never understood why guys would get so shocked. Oh, my wife left me. Well, you haven't been home in 10 years. What did you think she was doing?
And that's not what she signed up for. And it's and my ex she was military. Like I met her at DLI. You know.
Oh wow.
And you know, and she was intel and she had a lot of connections and things like that. So like during the invasion of Iraq, she would call one of my friends, you know, at JSOC and, you know, hey, I haven't heard from Dave. And it's like, oh no, I just heard from him. He's great. Well, he hadn't heard from me. We were out in the middle of the desert, like tooling around, you know, like getting supplies airdropped to us. You know, and sat phones at the time weren't a thing. You know what I mean? Satellite phones weren't a thing at the time. So he hadn't heard from me, but he was just telling her that so that she felt okay about it. But then she was also like, well, why is he talking to his buddies and not to me, you know?
That's not good.
So around 2008, I guess, I started thinking that, okay, I've been doing this a lot. My marriage has fallen apart, or it fell apart. Like there was no salvaging it. And I love what I do. I loved what I did. It was amazing. But I also, you know, you sort of, when you live your life like that, and you know this, Chris, like you sort of lose touch with, and I don't want to say reality because it's its own reality, but you come back and like I would always go like to Hooters when I'd come back, and yes, one because like the girls, but two also because the tables were always close together and you could hear other people's conversation. It's like, oh, this is what people are talking about, this is what.
You're reacclimating yourself back to American society.
Right.
And you're right. It's hard. They're the guys that go into the bars. I had this problem where I'd go in and I would hear people talking and I'd be like, why the world is not, you know, I'd be angry. It would actually get me the other way. So I'd have to go to someplace like Disney or someplace like that, where that would reacclimate back into it, where I wouldn't get pissed off at the college kid talking about how he did what he did. And me thinking, damn, hey, dude, my buddy just died. He's your age, and you're talking about going in. But we all found our ways, and that was my way. So,
you have to find a way. Otherwise, you start seeing the world in a very different way. So when my marriage fell apart, I moved to Vegas. We were planning on moving to Vegas anyway. And I bought this house. We are going to bring her mother-in-law, you know, my mother-in-law and all this stuff.
Which is weird in Vegas.
Well, the thing was that her sisters lived in California.
Yeah. And
I wanted to be close to them. But I also wanted to play professional poker.
Dude, you've done a lot of things.
So I moved to Vegas, by myself. And when I wasn't deployed, like I had a poker coach, like I would play.
It's insane.
Yeah, I would just sit at tables and grind all day, you know. And
did you lose a ton of money, win a ton of money, like any crazy?
No, I did well. Okay. I mean, I did well. The thing, I did well. I actually played in a tournament. The Johnny Chan I won. You know.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I have pictures of me sitting. It's just him and I heads up at the end of this tournament, and I won. You know, like I was a decent player.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, I had a coach. You know, who would watch my play or had me record my hands, and we'd review my play and stuff like that. But you know, when you're playing poker for a living in Vegas, you go every day, and it takes a certain type of person to do that. And I wasn't that type of person. Like after 3 years, I was like, this isn't.
That's still a long run. 3 years. That's a long run.
Me. Yeah. Well, and again, like I said, I was gone a lot. I was gone 6 to 8 months out of the year, but I was, you know, spending all my time playing poker. So around 2008, I started, you know, thinking that, okay, I want to move on to something else. You know, even though I love this, I don't want this just to be who I am and be my life. And I still wanted to serve people. I still wanted to feel like I was contributing in some way. And so I decided to get into hypnosis and life coaching, right? So from 2008 to like 2010, I started taking all these hypnosis courses and life coaching courses, things like that. And I opened a practice in Las Vegas, and Then when I left the contracting world in 2010, I was tired of Vegas because I didn't want to play poker anymore. And Vegas is it's a weird town. It's really hard to establish a social life there. It's very focused on the strip and and I'm not saying people don't and people can't, but it's challenging, and of course, everybody, I don't want to say everybody you date, but you end up dating strippers,
I'm
because
not shocked. Yeah.
Because it's hard to meet anybody else, it's hard to meet. And I don't know, your buddies come out and you always go to strip clubs and,
it's just Vegas.
Yeah.
I'd say, I'm not down, but it's just Vegas.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's what you get, what you go there for.
Yeah.
It is why a lot of people move out there to live this exciting
and that's
life.
what it is. Everybody's looking for a bigger, better deal all the time. It's a hustle. And look, I am not saying I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with strippers or they're not human beings, or you shouldn't date them. It tends to not be a very healthy lifestyle. You know what I mean? And so I was leaving Las Vegas and I used to live in San Francisco. And then I was thinking about, well, where do I want to move? And I thought, well, New York. I've never lived in New York. So I moved out here, opened a coaching and hypnosis practice. I did that for like 4 years.
Co-authored books on
Yeah.
So did you get your degree then in poli-sci, or did you go to Did you get it in counseling?
I never went to college.
So you didn't do it at all. You didn't do the college thing at all.
I did not. I never went to college. I got my degree while I was in the reserve. Through the normal way of doing it.
Yep.
Taking the CLEP test and the Dante's test and all those things, and getting the military credits. And then. So I did that for 4 years. And at one point I wrote one book and then co-authored another one. And neither one of them I think are great. The content is okay, but they need to be rewritten basically.
They're more academic though. They're not.
One of them was written for other coaches, and it needs to be expanded. It was more about like how to handle fear. And like there are aspects of it that are really great, but it's not written, it's not organized well. It's not written well. And one of these days I'll rewrite it for a general audience. But it talked about fear, and because a lot of times, either clients that I would talk to would be, they would be consumed with fear over something, like they wouldn't do something. Or like other coaches that I knew, like through the training process, would be afraid to coach clients or whatever. And so I sort of examined like the fear I felt in my own life, whether it was like talking to a woman I was attracted to or whatever it might be. And it's like, okay, I've been in combat, I've like made moves under fire. Like, why am I afraid of this? Like the consequences are are nothing compared to then.
I'm always fascinated by that because I've seen it not so much on our show, Chris, but prior. I had guys who did amazing things in combat, and then they were like terrified to speak into a microphone, which was crazy to me. I actually still remember, and I've said it on the show, when our friend Drew Dwyer, when he met Rob O'Neill, I remember he had a stack of books, and he was like, hey man, would you mind signing these for me? And to me, Drew Dwyer was like a certified badass, man. The stuff he did in the Marines, CIA, it's like, why are you fucking scared to ask this guy to sign some books? Like, that's always been crazy to me, because to do what you guys have done, sure, I would be terrified. To do this is second nature to me.
Right. Well, and here's what I figured about fear, is that it's a noise, right? And if you're focused on the fear, or if you're not focused on an outcome, then the fear is very loud, and you focus on that. When you're in combat, you're normally like focused on the next piece of cover.
Well, I said your next move, whatever that may be. What's my next move? Am I going to shoot it, or got to move? Do I got to duck? Do I got to call on the mic and report? It turns into your job. It's your job. I'm doing my job, and you don't think about the fear or anything. You're just thinking, okay, what do I need to do to get shit done?
Right.
Yeah. And the fear's not in there.
And the other thing is there are supporting elements, right, to managing fear. And one of those things is the person to my left and the person to my right, who I'm going through stuff with. And so a lot of times, like, you're performing for their benefit too.
Yeah.
You're setting a pace, or you're performing because you don't want to let them down, and you don't want them to think ill of you and everything else. Like, you do a lot of stuff that if you were by yourself, you would not do. And I'm not just saying you're doing it because you trust them to lay down cover fire. You trust them to have your back. You do it because if you all live through it, you don't want them calling you a bitch next time you're out at a bar and telling jokes about you.
Honestly, and if you don't do it, you're probably not going to live through it.
Right.
The weakest link, the chain's going to break, and you don't want to be that weak link.
Right.
You don't want to be that guy that let everybody down because it's a domino effect. If one guy falters, it affects everybody.
Right.
And then, Dave's a dickhead. Dave Buddy fucked everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's a no-go at this station, But so one of the things that I used to do with people, like my clients or whomever else, was I'd do this exercise. I created this exercise. Like, okay, if there were this busy highway, right, with traffic running both ways, would you run across that road if I gave you $1? And people are like, well, no. And I go, okay, what about $10? No. 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 150,000, 2 million. And even people who would go, no, I wouldn't do it for any amount. I go, what if there were a small child on the other side of that road starting to walk out in traffic? And people go, well, I'd probably do it then. It's like, okay, well, the consequences are the same, right? Like the risk to you is the same, but now there's something that's more value. So fear is just a system of competing values. Like, what is more valuable to me than sort of the possibility of getting hurt? And when you're in combat, that's what it is there are other values. You value your mission, you value the guys you're with, you value these other things more than the possibility of risk. And so really a lot of times when people are sort of held back by fear, it's because they haven't focused on, why am I doing this? Like, what's the value that I'm going to get out of this? And what do I want? If it's asking for a raise, like, have I really imagined that life that I'm going to have? Or the life my family will have when I get that raise, or whatever else that might be. Right. So I did a lot of work around fear when I was doing the coaching and like the hypnosis. And, a lot of people are like, oh, hypnosis, blah, blah, blah. But we hypnotize ourselves all the time, whether it's for pain or whatever. It's not like some magical mind control. It's just capturing awareness and sort of helping a person, modify behaviors through, this suggestible state that we can. And it's like when you're watching a movie and you start crying, that's not real. You know that nobody actually shot Old Yeller, and like our younger, listeners won't get that, but nobody actually shot the dog. The dog is fine and well, but our system is convinced that that's real and we're crying, right? It's captured our awareness, and that's really all it is. So anyway, so I did that for 4 years, got tired of that. And then, went into like bodyguarding for a while, now, yeah. And, now I'm looking like working with Jack and doing that stuff and, moving into like cybersecurity training for that. And
that's what it's experiences, man. That's what I would do with people, and just get the experiences, just the experience of it, whether it sucks or whether you think somebody may make fun of you. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Because now you've got all these experiences, and like with the books, you can pull and write about that stuff because you've experienced it. Like you said, this is what I felt.
Right.
Well, that's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear, well, I wrote this book because I learned it from that professor who learned it from that guy that was on
Dr. Oz.
I learned it because of all these books. I want to know because he's been through it.
Well,
what did he experience?
That was the second book that I did, and I did that with a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Nongard, who is, a counselor, and he's written like tons and tons of books. But the book actually, and the book isn't like, it's not, there's a lot of great information in it, but it's not like, we didn't organize it well. And it's not like, it's not a great, I don't think it's a great read. Like, I'm very judgmental of it when I read it. But Richard and I one time were talking about because he goes like, what are most people's reactions when, they find out that, you were in Iraq and Afghanistan? And I'm like, well, a lot of people are, I don't know why it's such a fascination, but a lot of people go, well, have you ever killed anybody? Like that's a big question.
I think that's a stare that's been gone since coming up since World War I, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just because that's what people want to know. I mean, I don't know why, but I don't know why either. Is it from TV, from media, from books? It's what's the fascination with it?
It is, I think part of it is that our culture is so far removed from death. Like we don't, we don't grow up on farms anymore. Like we don't kill our own game or animals.
The same thing. Yeah.
Funerals are sort of closed casket or whatever. Like we're so far removed from death where, you go to Afghanistan or you go to these places, people live with it daily. Blood feuds, blood feuds that last generations where somebody could be killed any day. Like it's just a part of their life and they don't really question it.
Tribal wars, tribal everything.
Right.
It's been there since the 60s.
And it was a part of, but it's been a part of world history, right? Like Vikings didn't, that wasn't a thing. Samurai, that wasn't a thing. Like it's been a part of our history. It's only, fortunately, and fortunately, most of our society is removed for that. Fortunately, they don't have to deal with the ramifications of things like that. But so people do have a fascination with that. So Richard asked me like, what's something that, how do people respond? And I go, well, I get this question a lot. It's really, it's odd. And then when I say yes, and he goes, and I go, and he goes, well, how did they respond to that? And I go, well, they go, well, how did you deal with it? Like, how did you overcome it, or how do you deal with it? And I go, and the thing is it's a presumption, right? Like, I didn't have to overcome anything. I didn't have to do anything. They were shitheads. They were horrible people. They were horrible people. There's nothing to deal with, It's not, and I know that a lot of guys, especially in the special operations community, will not see counselors. And I don't know if you've ever had, like, if you've gone to the VA and done the counseling. And it's really hard to like meet a therapist that doesn't project all of their preconceived notions.
So it's stereotype. It's a stereotype.
Yeah.
Man. You must have something wrong with you because you should be feeling something right now because he was trying to kill me. I shot him first.
Right. Like,
okay, it's over. I don't have bad dreams about it. I don't have night sweats.
Right.
He deserved what he got.
We were two adults who agreed to meet on the battlefield. Right.
Somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to lose.
Right.
And I shot first, or I was more accurate, or I was lucky.
I was lucky. Yeah.
It just shit happens.
Yeah.
Man. I say it.
Yeah.
Shit happens.
Yeah. And so we wrote a book called How to Counsel People Who Have Killed Other People.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of talks around like through the Midwest and the South near like VAs and things like that. And we had a lot of,
that's awesome.
Psychiatrists and psychologists and counselors and therapists come to these, 20, 30 people in each, per thing. And we went through sort of all these different things. And there's this thing I think that happens sometimes with people who don't have who don't have remorse, who aren't like, oh, it was horrible. Unfortunately, I was never caught up in like a friendly fire, a blue on blue,
Sure.
Or I never killed a civilian, and it happens. And the fog of war is real, and you're making very quick decisions under stress, and so I think something happens that that sometimes like a therapist or a person will say, we'll say, well, how did you get over it? And if a person says, well, I don't really have anything to deal with, like, it's okay. And then they'll be, well, are you sure? Like, really get in with it. And then the person, go ahead.
It's almost like they're putting something, like there's something wrong with you. So it'd be different if I'm going to the dark place. So guys, please be prepared. But it'd be different if I said, yes, I murdered a child.
Right.
And I didn't have remorse for that.
Right.
But it's not like that. And of course I would. I would never do that anyway. But to me, it's two separate things. Killing Al Qaeda is different than, yes, if I had murdered a child, yes, I would be something wrong with my head just for killing a child, regardless, and then not having the remorse for it.
Right.
But but they lump it all together. It's like all a generalization. Killing's killing. Well, no, it's not.
Right.
It's not.
Right. And sometimes what happens in that situation is the person starts internalizing that and go, well, I mean, am I a monster for not feeling like I'm a monster?
Yes. Something's wrong with me.
Right. Something's wrong with me.
Yes.
And that causes even more of a loop. And so like for a lot of guys, like there's a lot of like suicides in the special operations community. And I mean, in the veteran community in general, but a lot in the special operations community where a lot of people have seen combat. And I'm convinced that a lot of it is not, like post-traumatic stress, the way we think of post-traumatic stress, but, and sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's just like you go from this one world where everything makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Where taxes and social status and, bill, like nothing, none of that exists. Right. Combat is pure. Not war is pure, but combat itself is pure. It's A to B, I know what my job is. I'm moving to the next objective or moving to the next point of cover or like you said earlier, what's my next action?
What's my next action?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's flow. It's a flow state in its own way. And then you go from that to a world where it's hard to make sense of things, to a world where it doesn't matter how many people you've led in combat or managed in combat. You can't get a middle level management in corporate America unless you were an officer. It's a world where people don't understand you. People are afraid of you. People are, even though we should be past that Charlie's in the Wire, impression of Vietnam flashbacks, that used to be popularized in film and stuff like that. We should be past we know that that's not what post-traumatic stress is now, right? We know that a person is more likely to do harm to themselves than to somebody else when they have post-traumatic stress. But people are still afraid of that. If you go in and interview for a job in New York, or try to get an apartment or whatever else, people are afraid that you might snap. And so it's sort of hard to sort of readjust to this world. And I think that's what, and then and a lot of people don't go see counselors,
stigma.
Yeah. And if they do, a lot of times they get this stuff projected on them and it even adds to that sort of isolation and everything. And it becomes a downward spiral where a guy's just like, look, like I had a good run. I had a good run. I did what I wanted to do in life, and now I'm bored and I'm tired and I don't fit in anymore.
Yeah. There's so much of this that we could talk about, but I don't know if Chris is seeing the time.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I was looking. I was looking at you because we could go into more of that as well.
We could, and it's flying by, but it would be crazy to not at least for like 5-10 minutes touch on. I mean, people know from the show that you got viciously attacked.
Yeah.
Over the summer in New York City, and we haven't even addressed it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll talk about it real briefly then.
Sure. One thing is the audience could tell you were perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, at least as normal as I was.
Yeah.
So so I was working nights and on a subway, and it was COVID, so I was the only person on the subway. 10 o'clock at night, and sitting there reading on my phone, and unaware that there was nobody on the train, but apparently somebody got on the train. I was not aware, and that's one of the things that people, like a lot of people are like, oh, all that training and you weren't aware. It's like, well, you try to like you tried. I'm not saying you try to not be aware of your surroundings anymore. I was a dumbass, you know, I'm embarrassed by it, but you know, at the same time, you're trying to not swerve or drive down the middle of the road and swerve away from plastic bags and potholes and stuff like that. Like you go through this process of trying to like not
be all stressed out and always on point all the time. And it's 10 o'clock at night. You're coming back from work. I'm tired. I'm human. Right. I'm trying to relax my brain. Right. I mean, that's normal.
Right. But also dumb. Just dumb. So I'm reading and I just like, I get hit. Like that's the first thing I know is I get hit and I'm out. Like it knocks me out. Like I have an awareness, but I'm for all intents and purposes out. And I have this awareness that I get hit again. Like I feel it again.
Was it hand fist? Did it hit you with the club?
I didn't know at the time. I thought that this was like Mike Tyson or Rocky Marciano. Like I thought whoever this was just packing, because I've been hit a lot in my life. And this was a hit. And you know, so the first one knocked me out. The second one, like it's being underwater and being aware of something hitting the top, you know, hitting the surface of the water. Like I know that I get hit again. And then I get hit a third time. And that's sort of when my mind starts doing this process. I hear my own voice. He's going to kill me, or he's trying to kill me. And then I don't feel like dying. And my system rebooted. You know, my eyes popped open and I sat up and all I can see is his waist. I see his belt and I can't stand, like I'm out, like you know, have nothing. And I see his belt. So I push him back a little bit to get some space. I sink down, you know, take him into like a single leg, you know, and take him down. And then start crawling up his body. And I like get to his groin and I reach for my knife and realize I don't have my knife anymore. I stopped carrying it because I got ticketed for it, you know, 4 years ago, in New York. But apparently that's since changed. I didn't know that. But anyway, so then I keep, you know, climbing up his body and then we sort of get in this, you know, grappling situation, but I've got him held. And, but I keep on losing consciousness, right? I keep on losing consciousness. And I can't see out of my left eye, and I have them on my left eye or left side, because the left side of my skull is where I was taking those blows. Okay. And then we start pulling up the next stop, and he starts getting scared, and he says, "If you let me go, I'll let you go. If you let me go, I'll let you go." And I'm like, I'm not going to let this motherfucker go, but I can't retain consciousness. Like I keep on blacking out and losing time, and I start getting worried that. Like if he panics and pulls a knife or something and like I won't be able to see it coming. And so I let him go and he gets up and, you know, I'm still lying on the ground and he starts to reach for something and I see it. It's a phone. And I thought it was my phone. And so I kick his hand. And when I say kick, I don't mean like Bruce Lee kick. I mean like an angry, like toddler, you know, just flailing from the ground. But I kick his hand. I said, "Don't touch my phone." And he goes, "It's my phone." And he reached for it again. And I kick his hand again. And then the doors open and people are kind of standing there and he runs off. So I'm sitting there in a daze and this kid gets on, like on the other door. He doesn't want to get too close to me. Obviously, I mean, I look like a thug and he doesn't know what just happened. Yeah. So he goes, "Do you need help?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Do you want the police?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Okay, I'll take you to the police." So I start to get up and grab my backpack and
how old was this kid?
I probably early 20s, you know. And I go to the phone and it's not my phone. My phone somehow ended up in my back pocket at some point. Like, I don't know when I put it in my back pocket. But it wasn't my phone. And then I turn around and there's a rock the size of like a large coconut. They're like this really porous rock. In fact, the reason I say coconut is because that's how a cop described it, right? And it's just covered in blood.
Oh, I hit you. Damn.
And, I mean, he took a rock on the subway to basically murder somebody, right? And so anyway, so I start to get off the train and the kid's like, no, stay here. We're going to go to Union Square and, you know, and I'll take you to the police station there. So we go to Union Square. I'm dazed. I can't think of anything. So then he walks me to the police station and they call the EMS and I start throwing up and I get admitted to the Bellevue ER in critical condition. I had an active brain bleed. So what it ended up being was I had 2 orbital fractures. I had 2 orbital fractures. 2 skull fractures. One of them slightly displaced, but basically the doctors told me that if he would have hit me again, if he would have gotten in another shot, that there was nothing. It would have turned my brain to mush. 2 orbital fractures, 2 skull fractures, numerous fractures like through my jaw and cheek, running behind my ear. So I had hearing. I couldn't hear out of my left ear, couldn't see out of my left eye. And I was in critical, I had an active brain bleed. I was in critical condition, for like 24 hours where they kept me sort of in surgical status. And, and I was evaluated by, numerous surgical teams for different things and told I was going to need all these surgeries. And through a lot of rehab and through a lot of everything else like that, I didn't need anything. I have permanent hearing loss in my left ear. I already had hearing loss, I have hearing aids.
Which you do too. So.
Yeah. VA gets some nice hearing aids.
I got $4,000 hearing aids.
Yeah. The Oticons. Those are nice.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, they're really nice.
It's a good thing you have got a hard head, man.
Well, seriously.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's, from what I've heard, the Rock is actually in counseling right now.
Is it?
Yeah. But
that's a good line.
But the cop the cop comes in to interview me and and says what happened. I was like, well, I got hit by a rock, blah blah blah. And so then he goes and views the evidence because he was a Brooklyn cop, because I guess it happened in Brooklyn. And the evidence was in New York City. And he came back like the next day and he goes, he's a Brooklyn cop. And he's like, what the fuck? He said, he said it was a rock. He didn't say it was a fucking, coconut. He goes, I can't believe you got hit with that. And you're, 3 times. I am lucky I have a hard head. Honestly, and I'm lucky that, I've had the training that I have to get up because a couple doctors that I've taught, a doctor has said it's miraculous. It's miraculous that you were able to come back from that. It saved your life. And it's miraculous that, that you've basically healed the way you have, so.
I have a million other questions I could ask you about this, and it sucks that we're like out of time.
Sorry.
But this has been fascinating. And the last thing that at least I wanted to ask was, do we know what the motive was? Because had he have just knocked you out and stolen money, that's normally what would have happened. Why was he trying to kill you?
That was just his plan. That was just his plan. Because rocks like that aren't necessarily easy to come by in New York. Like
Not in New
rocks
York,
don't just sit on the side of the street here. He was just going to go murk somebody. And look, I'm not what I'm going to say sounds like super like heroic and magnanimous and whatever. Like, I'm glad it was me, right? I'm glad it was me and not, some elderly person or some kid or some woman or even some dude, some father of 3, I'm glad it was me. And I say that in retrospect being okay. Like if somebody would have said, hey, we need a volunteer for somebody to, roger up and take a boulder to the side of the head, I wouldn't, that's not me. So I don't want to sound like, I'm some great, thing. But now in hindsight, I'm glad it was me and not somebody else, But yeah, so saved my life. Not saved my life, but yeah, coming to like that and fighting back and saved my life.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I know I got questions too, and we'll get you on again. I know I'm looking at my like, holy shit.
Yeah, I rambled.
No, don't you be sorry at all.
Not at all.
No.
I think the listeners are going to just be like, holy shit, that was 2 hours. But this was amazing. So subscribe to the Team House on YouTube on all podcast platforms.
Yeah.
at Dave_Parke on Twitter, at D.Parke with a Parke on Instagram. Also there's the books, of course, as we said, Coach with Courage, and then, the more recent book.
Yeah.
More than anything, subscribe to the Team House.
Yes, please subscribe to the Team House. Check us out. We're brothers in arms with you guys. We have a lot of just really, really amazing people on there.
You do.
We're so fortunate and blessed to have the type of guests that we have. So
awesome. All right. And then for the audience, wrapping things up, be sure this is your last chance to sign up for the Florida course at tontosgearlocker.com, February 20th, 21st. Be there.
That's all for this episode of the Battleline podcast, but we'll be back on Monday with more American straight talk. Until then, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at Battleline Pod. To sign up for future Battleline tactical courses, go to www.christantoparanto.net. Believe in yourself, face all challenges head on, and as always, never quit.